The government has just doubled your taxes, and if you think this is where it ends, you are wrong, because more tax hikes are coming your way. Hey guys, Scott here. If you're an everyday Aussie right now and you're just trying to survive the week, this is going to make your blood boil. You're not splurging, you're not living a luxury lifestyle, you're not jetting off on holidays all over the globe, you're just trying to pay your bills, maybe keep up with the mortgage, and somehow still make it to the next day. And then the government comes out, decides you aren't suffering enough, and decides to double your taxes on everything. And this is what makes it infuriating. 2 days ago now, the RBA jacked up interest rates again. Mortgage repayments jumped overnight. For a lot of households, that meant hundreds of dollars more every single month just to stand still. Then the government stepped in and twisted the knife. They increased the fuel taxes, spirits tax was doubled, tobacco tax is going up, and now the treasurer has openly come out and said more taxes are on the table to patch up the budget, including not ruling out changes to the capital gains tax discount. So let me paint you a picture. You're already struggling to pay rent, you're paying ridiculous bills, you're trying to cover school fees, you open your bank app and you're reminded that Australia already has one of the highest household debt levels in the world, and your own debt just keeps climbing. You think to yourself, okay, I need a break from this. You go to the pub with a few mates and you find that the tax on your drinks has doubled. You jump in the car to clear your head, fuel is taxed. What will the government tax you on next? Now, all of this is happening while power bills keep jumping, rents are out of control, household debt is already crushing. Australia has some of the highest alcohol taxes in the world. At this point, it generally feels like the government is taxing you for breathing air. So stay with me, because I'm going to walk you through every tax hike that's already landed and the ones which are coming, and why the government is doing this right now, and exactly how this hits you where it hurts. I will also unpack the capital gains tax. So quick one before we get into it. I do a daily property update every single day. Hit the subscribe button so you never miss one of these daily property updates on property and the economy. Okay, let's get into it. So in this first part, let's take a look at why the government is doing this right now. So the obvious question is this: why now? Why pile on taxes when Aussies are already drowning? The short answer is budget pressure. The longer answer is that the government is actually cornered. Inflation has jumped again. The RBA has already come out and said prices are not coming down fast enough. That is why interest rates just went up, and possibly we're looking at even more rate increases to come. And the moment rates rise, every weakness in the budget gets exposed. At the same time, the government is being openly blamed for feeding inflation. Top economists are saying public spending stayed too high for too long. Voters are angry. The opposition is circling, and the budget numbers are starting to look ugly. Add to that what is happening globally. The world is incredibly unstable right now economically. The US is throwing tariffs around again. Trump is back on the global stage, threatening trade wars and pulling stunts that rattle markets. Europe is fragile. Growth is slowing everywhere. Governments are trying to protect their economies before things break. Now, Australia is not totally immune to that. So when the treasurer looks at the books, he sees three problems at once. Inflation is high, the budget is under massive pressure, and global risk is rising. And when governments feel cornered like that, they reach for the fastest lever they have: taxes. Now let's talk about where the government has gone looking for more money, more taxes, your money, because this is where it gets very, very personal. The government did not go after big corporations. They did not go after multinationals. They did not go after billion-dollar companies or loopholes hidden in tax law. They went after everyday life. They started with fuel. Every time you fill up your car, the government takes a fixed amount of tax from every single liter of petrol or diesel you buy. Right now, that fuel tax is just over 52 cents per liter. That is not the full price of fuel. That is just the tax component. And on top of that fuel tax, you also pay GST. It is crazy. So before you even drive out of the servo, you're paying tax on tax. This fuel tax automatically goes up twice every year, in February and in August, in line with inflation. No vote, no debate, it just happens. So if you drive to work, do school drop-offs, run a business, or live in the outer suburbs, you get hit harder every single week. Then the government went after alcohol. Australia already has one of the highest alcohol taxes in the world, and spirits just got hit again. The tax on spirits now sits at around $108 per litre of pure alcohol. In real terms, about $30 of a standard bottle of gin or whiskey is tax, straight to the government. Beer drinkers get a temporary freeze. Wine is treated a bit differently, but if you order a vodka, a gin, or a cocktail, you pay more. Just like fuel, the spirits tax goes up every 6 months automatically. And as if fuel and spirits weren't enough, they've also come after tobacco. Now, there's no judgment from me on alcohol or tobacco. That's a personal decision. But taxing this is just incredibly unfair. Now look, on the surface, they can pass it off as sounding very reasonable. You can understand the argument. The government says higher tobacco taxes will stop people from smoking. But here's the problem, it does not work. Another tobacco tax increase is already locked in, and every state premier knows this tax is broken. They've said it openly. What actually happens is simple. When the government jacks up tobacco taxes, cigarette prices explode, the government expects revenue to rise, but instead, revenue falls. Not because people suddenly quit smoking, but because they move to the black market. This has been happening for years. Packs are so expensive now that people don't stop smoking, they just stop buying legally. Illegal tobacco fills the gap, organized crime steps in, and organized crime thrives because of this tax. And then the government collects less tax overall. This is the definition of stupid. So the policy fails on every single front, and yet the government keeps going anyway. Why? Because it looks good on paper, because it gives them something to announce. They don't care how Aussies actually respond to higher taxes and rising cost of living. They don't care that households are already stretched. They don't care that people are living week to week, watching their quality of life slide backwards. They are not living in reality. They're not fixing housing, the biggest pain point of every single Aussie. They're not cutting red tape so we can build more housing. They're not increasing housing supply. Instead, they jack up interest rates, making repayments harder. They jack up taxes, making everything else more expensive. And then they stand there and tell you that this is the lucky country. Well, let me ask you the question. Is it really? You tell me. Now let's talk capital gains tax. Now, just when you think they've run out of things to tax, they turn their attention to capital gains. This is the part that should really worry people. Over the past few weeks, the Treasurer has been very careful with his language. He hasn't confirmed anything, but he has made one thing extremely clear. Capital gains tax reform is on the table, or in other words, it is not off the table. It is not being ruled out. The CGT discount is not off limits. And let's be honest about what that means. Right now, if you sell an investment property, only half of the profit is taxed. That's the 50% CGT discount. It's been there for decades. Now, the government is openly floating the idea of cutting it back or scrapping it altogether. They're pitching this as fairness, as a way of fixing housing, as a way to help younger Australians. But here is the truth. Every serious research institute that has looked at this says the same thing. It does not fix the housing crisis. It does not increase supply. It does not suddenly make homes more affordable to build. It does not magically increase the number of homes which we have. And it does not help renters in the long run. All it does is add another layer of tax pressure, which renters ultimately will pay for. I've done a full video on this already, so if you want the deep dive, go and watch that. But the short version is simple. Housing is expensive because we don't build enough homes. Taxing people harder does not create new homes. What it does do is punish people who are already trying to manage their lives. Think about this for a second. You've worked for decades, you've built equity in your home or your one investment property, and now you want to sell it or downsize to free up some cash to make life easier or to help your kids. You finally want to unlock the value you spent years building. And instead of that money giving you flexibility, a larger slice now disappears in tax on top of all the other tax that you are paying. That changes behavior. People hesitate to sell. They hold on longer than they should. They think twice before making moves that would actually help them. And when fewer people sell, supply tightens even more. Prices don't come down, pressure builds. So once again, the policy misses its target and lands squarely on everyday Aussies. Fuel, spirits, tobacco, now capital gains. Piece by piece, every angle of your wallet is being squeezed. And this leaves you and anyone asking this obvious question. What's the point of working harder, saving more, and taking risks and investing if every step forward gets clawed back in tax? So let's just step back and zoom out for a moment. Fuel costs more, alcohol costs more, tobacco costs more, interest rates are higher, and now capital gains are back in the firing line. What will be next? All of this is happening while rents are brutal, Mortgages are stretched, and household debt in Australia is already among the highest in the world. This isn't reform. This is pressure stacking. And it feels like every time Aussies try to get ahead, the rules shift again. I am genuinely curious what you think. Do you think this actually fixes anything? Or does it just make life harder for people already under strain? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Be sure to subscribe because I will do in the next video a complete breakdown of the proposed capital gains tax changes. This is a video you do not want to miss. Hit subscribe and I'll see you guys at the next video.